All right, all right. Welcome everyone back to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast, where we learn about leadership through the lens of men who have served or are currently serving as worshipful master of a regular lodge of free and accepted Masons. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, a proud past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 in Rochester, New York. We're currently serving as our worshipful master is Brother Jermaine Myers. And I am with
I am Past Master Mark Alexander, a proud past master of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123 out of Brooklyn, New York. We're currently in the Oriental chair is Fitzgerald Boyce II.
Absolutely. We both hail from the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. We're currently serving as our Grand Master is Most Worshipful Gregory Roberson Smith Jr. Before we get into our introduction of our esteemed guest today, we do have a quick disclaimer.
Views and opinions on this show are our own. The purposes of this show is for educational and entertainment purposes. If you have any questions, consult the proper office in your prospective jurisdiction.
Absolutely. So with that, also, if you have not already subscribed to our channel, we hope that you will subscribe to our channel. We appreciate the positive feedback. Like this episode so that many more people can see it in their YouTube feed if you're listening on YouTube. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest today. It's a kind of a backstory to this. So this is our second worshipful master that we've actually interviewed, but the first worshipful master that'll be published on the podcast here. And so we are glad to have Worshipful Master Charley H. Fisher III from St. John's Lodge, number 16, the mother lodge of the 7th District, the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. Worshipful Master Charley Fisher currently serves as Worshipful Master. He also served as Worshipful Master in the year of 2014. He is also a past excellent high priest of Companion Chapter number 35. He is a past commander-in-chief of Bison Consistory number 29. He is a past district president of the 7th Masonic District in New York, and he is currently the eminent commander of Emmanuel Commandery number 21. He's a busy man. And last but certainly not least, he also earned his 33rd degree, last degree of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite in 2020. Welcome, Worshipful Master Fisher, to the Masterful Conversations podcast.
Past masters, to you both. It's an honor to be on your program. Quite an honor to be part of such a noble undertaking. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to this effort.
Absolutely, we appreciate you being here.
Hey, Matt, before you get into the question, and I got one thing referring back to something you said as them being a mother lodge of their district, because I had just brought that up in the jurisdictional chat, wondering if all the mother lodges are around. But the term mother lodge is something that's Masonic, meaning the first lodge in a certain area. So it's not like they birthed any other lodges. They are the first lodge in that district. So that's what that is.
You know, we say that, and of course, we're 159 years old. We were chartered in 1865. But for instance, a good example is Master Craftsman, Lodge number 110. Those charter members, all but one, came from St. John's Lodge. So and my father, Charley Fisher Jr., Right Worshipful Fisher, was the special deputy that oversaw the chartering under the past Grand Master William J. Richardson. So you know, 1909, 1911, the Electric City Lodge, those members of St. John's had been on horseback and wagon coming from Niagara Falls to Buffalo. And so when the 8 o'clock came around, we'd have the meeting. It was late into the night when they got home in Niagara Falls. Of course, we supported our brothers going there. In that sense, we birthed Electric City. But you're absolutely right to delineate. Mother lodge does not always imply, though it can in some instances. A lodge can actually birth or give its members to the UD process under dispensation. But so we are the now fifth oldest lodge in the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge in the state of New York. We were St. John's Lodge number 20. And after 1878, we were St. John's Lodge number 16. And there are only, those other lodges are dark, except for 4 lodges. And so we should be cognizant they were on the shoulders of these great men that prayed out this work. And it's not lost on us that, you know, we have a role as the oldest lodge in upstate New York now. Thank you for that clarification, though.
Absolutely. No, that was great. That was a great, and because I think this is the first time we actually used the term Mother Lodge on this platform. So thank you for keeping us honest in that regard for sure. I did miss one other very important title, is that he is also Worshipful Master Fisher is also District Deputy Grand Lecturer Emeritus of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the state of New York. And so he gave up his titles here to go back into the chair as Worshipful Master. So, you know, when you go back in as Worshipful Master, at least I was told that you lose the right worshipful title. And so now that he is a Worshipful Master again, would love to understand your journey back into the East. Let's learn about some leadership and just talk about those times, both in 2014 and now in 2024. So with that being said, can you give us a little bit of information? You can start from 2014 or 2024. It's up to you. But give us a little information about your lodge in terms of how many members are in your lodge at the time when you were first Worshipful Master versus now, and then also a little bit about your journey up to the East.
Thank you. It goes without saying that when I assumed the East by the will and vote of our brethren in December, second Thursday in December 2013, I had been a member since 1976. So for those younger brothers who are watching, it's not important always being there to trying to get to the East in 6 years or 7 years, because it's important when you go to be ready. So I think that was important. All of my work, having been a retired politician, a retired Democratic Party leader, but a state retired, New York State retiree. You know, it was hard raising a family. Remember I was 24. I was in the South of St. John's Lodge, very difficult job. And I had 3 little children. And I sympathize with men who are trying to build their family. Congratulations on your daughter, by the way, Pass, and the great successes that your children are having. But so to those watching, don't be in such a hurry. Take your time. It's okay if it takes you 10 or 15 years to get to the East. You don't need to do it in 4 years or 5 years because you might not be ready for it. And it's one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had in my life. And so I spent 1,200 hours in 2013 when 2013, 2014, my 1 year. So 1,200 hours in the lodge and doing lodge things in the lodge. I had office hours. And of course, for 100 of those 365 days, the lodge was dark because we had a freeze and a flood, subsequent flood that destroyed the lodge. So we were having to use the Friends of the Elderly Center by this decree of Most Worshipful Dorian Glover. So for 100 of those days, I didn't even have, but we didn't miss a meeting. We didn't miss a class. We started a day class. We didn't miss a fellow craft meeting, which is our fundraising arm. So when you take these seats, be prepared to give the time. If your schedule doesn't allow it, don't do it until it does. And so, you know, while you're strong, he said he calls the strong, great license, he calls the strong young because they're strong, but he calls the old because they know the way. That's in the great light. And so I just say that to say that it didn't happen for immediately. I was in the South when I was 24. I was in the West when I was in 25. I relocated to Atlanta after serving 1 year. I started over in the South, a senior deacon South, West. No, I didn't even get to the West that time. And then in 2012, I went to the West. So sometimes it takes a while, but all things work together for good for them to love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So it is written in our great light.
Absolutely. And just remind us, how many members are in St. John's Lodge now? And then also, is it a similar number in 2014?
There are 60 members currently in St. John's Lodge. 10 years ago, we had over 80 members. So there's attrition. There's many of our men have died off. We've lost so many. And many have just fallen away. But 60 has been a sort of number. I think we hit our bottom, if you will. The membership is sort of holding forth now at 60. And I don't know if we're going to experience any wild growth, but the tide ebbs and flows twice in 24 hours. And so the momentum of membership in our history of 159 years, it was always 100. Once we were at 200 members 50 years ago, and now we're at 60, but I think we're leveling off. So I hope that we don't continue to decline, but we're not going to make Masons just to be making Masons. We don't want Masons that just come in for a minute. We want to grow strong cedars of Lebanon.
Amen. Less is more. Less is more sometimes.
Yes.
Very much so. Before I go into this first question, I can't help but comment on your beautiful family in the picture in the background.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
well, thank you. My
exactly.
bride is Denise, the former Denise Liggins. And some of those, that's 3 of my children and 8 of my grandchildren. And I think I have 2 in that picture, 2 of my 4 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah,
Blessings.
that's just some of them. I couldn't get them all together at one time. But on the, of course, I don't want to date our program, but June 7th is a time that I am planning my 70th birthday. Not me, but my children and family. Right? Going to have a 70th birthday thing.
Celebration.
Yeah, celebration. So I once was young. I was the young man. I always was the young man. Now I'm the old guy. Telling the story.
It's all good. You're around. That's the most important part.
I've been around.
So the one of the normal question that we ask during our program is, what is effective leadership in your view?
What is effective leadership? I think effective leadership is a leadership by example. It's presumed the Worshipful Master to have wisdom to what? Rule and govern the lodge, to rule it and to govern it. And an effective leader is one who has a vision, has a plan, a strategic plan, has the ability to lead the lodge in all facets, not to do everything, because he must be a motivator of men. He must be someone who can distribute the work. And as we're admonished in the middle chamber, that we should not remember that though elevated for a season, we're elevated by the members. So he is an effective leader that can get production and work. Also, an effective leader is one that is able to represent his lodge in the community. Prince Hall was the Martin Luther King of the 1700s. He had no problem identifying. He hung with Christopher Attucks and other great leaders. He was an activist in his community, and we think effective leadership is simply within the 4 walls. Incorrect. Effective leadership is leadership that takes us out there. The Great Light says you're like a city that sitteth on a hill that cannot be hid. Let your light shine, that men see your good works and glorify the Father in heaven. If you don't do the work, men won't see it. And if men don't see it, God can't get the glory. And so it's about production. An effective leader is one that's prepared. An effective leader must be competent in all aspects, including the ritual. And an effective leader must be willing to put together and do a fish dinner, a skating party, an annual cookout, a charity ball, right, Pass? You must be willing to do it all, but you need to be a leader that teaches and motivates his brothers to get the job done. He must have a vision for his lodge. And he also must be not an overnight sensation or a wonder. He must be someone that builds on the previous administrations. So when he was the senior deacon, junior deacon, when he was a steward or master servant, when he was the junior warden, senior warden, so that there should be continuity. Effective leader doesn't begin with, I'm here now, and this is what we're going to do. He takes what was already prepared and he builds on that. He just doesn't uproot everything and say, I'm here now and this is what it's going to be. So it's all about production. An effective leader produces. And so those are just some aspects what I think leadership is.
Outstanding.
Yeah. I want to add to that. I want to just sort of dig a little bit deeper into that. Your journey into the East, we know it took time. So you had some time to cook. And so what I'm thinking of right now, as you were cooking and as you were preparing yourself, you talked about the worshipful master needs to be prepared. And then you also said that worshipful master needs to have a vision. To be an effective leader, you need to have a vision and building upon what came before. Can you share a story or two, or just sort of like your journey in terms of how you prepared yourself for the East that first time that you were in the East, and then how you may have prepared yourself differently or the same for the second time in the East?
Okay, thank you. Dr. Raymond E. Jackson, who served at St. John's Lodge in 1928, 29, went on to become district deputy grand lecturer, then in 1930s grand senior warden, 1934 grand master, 1937 through 55 imperial potentate. He lived on my street. I lived at 167 Headley. He lived about 100 and like 120.
Lived on Headley near Canisius?
Yes.
Interesting. Oh,
I lived
my
at
goodness.
167. Okay. And listen, next door was the past grand trustee, Thomas Edwards, the great Thomas Edwards at Thomas Edwards Funeral Home. He lived next door. I was the paper boy. So I went to Ray Jackson's house, and my dad was the worshipful master in 71, but he did his thing in many houses. But I grew up in a Masonic house. My mother was a past matron and a past commandress. Father was an imperial, a past potentate, past commander-in-chief, and the treasurer of the Council of Deliberation for about a dozen years. So this influence of Masons coming, because back then St. John's didn't have a lodge for a while. We used to rent space from Paramount. So our Fellowcraft Club was held, whoever was the junior warden. So I remember all these men and the women from the Stars coming over the house to do these meetings about the charity ball. And I played piano as a young kid, and they'd have me play the piano for a little bit and introduce myself. So I saw all these great people. I remember coming in the lodge, seeing Arlen and Elbers recite the entire ritual. And then Wilbur Banks in 78, I served as his junior deacon. He was one of the greatest ritual men ever. I saw Raymond Jackson and Charles Scott, past grand trustee Charlie Scott, teaching in the lodge. Our treasurer, Edward Barrett, was 62 years as the treasurer. So you can imagine all that. I sat at their feet, brothers. I sat at their feet. Brother Alexander, just like you get all that knowledge from those great men down there. And same thing with you and Eureka, I sat at their feet and I listened to them. And they put this in me and they live through me. It said in the Meta Nature, my brothers and sisters, tell our children to renew the instructions of their mothers and fathers. For our history begins with the words and actions we take today. May it be said of us in the day of our passing that none were wretched. Hear not, speak truth, judge not, do justice. So we pass it on like griots. They passed it on. They put it in me. They deposited it in me, and now I'm giving it out. And those stories and those men and women, greatness, I hear their voices. I will never forget. Yes, I did as Master 2013, named the kitchen after Poe Will. Right, Worshipful Robert F. Banks, Mr. Ritual. He was a chef. He was a famous manager of Scotty's Steakhouse. I named that kitchen after him. I named the Barrett Room after our treasurer. I named the Tyler's seat after David Melson. And just recently, we buried Walter Jackson, who was the steward for many years. He was Mr. Fish Dinner himself. And so these are the people that shared with me, and not just from St. John's Lodge. Listen, we had men from Electric City and Eureka, men from Paramount, all of them poured into me, brother. And I was 22 years old when I came, and I petitioned when I was 21, but I didn't get my third degree till August 28th, 1976, when I was 22 years of age. And I listened, and they taught me. I went to Atlanta, and the Grand Lodge of Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Georgia was in the building that Dr. King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference rented the first floor. I worked for the national office, but I saw the Grand Lodge of Georgia. Fascinated by our Grand Lodge. And anywhere that I could learn, I wrote the information. I listened to those men, and I still hear their voices. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, the history that you were able to absorb throughout your time before you became a Mason and then after becoming a Mason is immaculate. Rest in peace, Wilbur Banks, the great lecturer himself, man. I can't let that go without saying rest in peace to him. Great man. My co-dean of me and my class when we came in 20 years ago in June. But then also, I'm curious about how all of that sort of shaped the philosophy or maybe the pillars or the structure that you wanted to impart or to insert into the lodge when you became master. So your trestle board is probably a collection of all these experiences that sort of, bubbled up into you becoming master in 2014. What were some of those key pillars that you wanted to sort of implement when you first got in? Like, what did you focus in on, and how did you build upon the previous generations?
There was a woman that lived in the neighborhood around our lodge when I was Worshipful Master, and she had a fire and burned her house down. She had 4 children. And I felt a responsibility in a lodge that had, honestly, may I be honest, brothers, it was no wrong, but we were coming in to have our meetings and leaving. For all those years, coming in, meeting and leaving, parking in the parking lot. They see us in our black suits. We walk into the lodge, we leave. We do our thing on the class of nights, we leave. Very little interaction with the community. And so when that lady's, she didn't die, but when her fire burned her house, I felt a duty and expectation from the community to raise something. And we had her come to a community center, and we stood up and said, we want to give her some money. She's burned out. And so I gave maybe like $50. And Tim Clemens, right, Worshipful Clemens, he matched me with $50. And then a little boy got up and brought 50 cents. And then, and she was sitting there in the front facing the audience. And then one by one, people got up, there were about 200 people in the room, and they filled her lap with so much money, they had to get a bag and another bag. And before it was over, we raised hundreds of dollars for that woman. That, my brothers, is the kind of thing that said community engagement. The Masons have come to save the day. Masons are one that are punctual, they're clean, they're decent, they're compassionate and loving, and they do more than just party and drink. That when called upon, that Black institution or whatever the race of people that are in that Masonic lodge can be depended upon to be Prince Hall type leaders. And so we did that again and again and again. That marked my time. The widows dedicated revenue for just the widows. Now it's a little different focus, because in this administration now, we gave out these, after the terrible disaster a couple of years ago in 2022, or the power failure that many people died, 48 people tragically were killed because of no heat. The power was gone. We gave out $12,500 worth of emergency kits, solar powered lamps, hand warmers, emergency can openers, transistor radios. Each bag weighed about 45 pounds. And we gave that in the lodge. We're doing things like that now, but we're saying to the community, and one last thing, young men in our community have never been inside the lodge. You know what? In every lodge in the jurisdiction, we're sort of silos, we're ivory towers, we're buildings, and they see us and they look at us with respect. But some young men have never been inside a Masonic lodge, and we want to know why Masons, why these young people aren't in the Knights of Pythagoras. Why we don't have participation of young people. So I intend to open up the doors and windows of St. John's Lodge in the sense of having a few dozen young men come in for a few classes this summer. And one side of the room, a couple dozen young men, on the other side of the room, a couple dozen Masons. I want them to see how Masons are, who we are, how we live, pass along the messages about being a man, because some of these young men don't have a father, haven't had a Black teacher in their whole life, haven't had a Black figure of authority, a Black man. They don't even know what it is. And so they need to see strong Black men in the lodge room. They need to see what the lodge room is. And then we need to be, because we're the ones best equipped in the community, the village, the African village, to pass on manhood. What am I talking about? Rites of passage. Who better than the Masons to confer manhood on these young men than the Masons? We're the esoteric, we're the ritual, we're the ones who've learned how to do the initiation. So in that sense, I hope that we will take time to invest in young Black boys to help them to become men. And some of those will become Knights of Pythagoras or Junior Masons or whatever you want to call it. But I think if we do that year after year, good brothers, we'll never have to worry about where the young people at and how come they're not coming in. Well, you can see I feel strongly about that subject.
Yeah, those are definitely some excellent points. Definitely. To quick note, Knights of Pythagoras is the Prince Hall youth group that was designed for young men ages from 9 to 18.
Yes,
so
sir.
you can go on Google it, Knights of Pythagoras, and it'll pop up with the website if you want more information on that.
So,
Worship
and
Master.
I'm a Sir Knight.
Yeah, me too, of course. Both of my sons were in the program. My younger son made it to Master Knight. My older son made it to Senior Knight. Actually, my younger son made it to a Grand Junior Knight too. But Worship Master, if the people that's listening, especially the Masons, can definitely tell that you are know your great light well and you know your ritual well. Now, you talked about how you stress the community aspect within your lodge, and I'm pretty sure, how did the educational part go as far as teaching your members, or how are you going about
Well,
doing that?
I'll give you an example. I've been a dean 4-5 different times. And my classes, like last year's class, we had 46 classes. Those that we did was because because it's on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, either because it was a holiday or because there was a funeral or something that precluded us, that would not allow us to meet. But we had 46 classes last year. I was at all of them. We started at 7 o'clock, we ended at 9, and then we had a collation. The collation was whatever the brothers might contribute, $3 or $4 for the food, and we'd have good fellowship and watch the basketball game or football game, whatever, on Monday night. Now, education is critical. The Great Light said, study to show yourself approved workmen that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. We must study. It's simply not just being able to spit for 10 pages, the ritual. That sounds good, but can you explain what it is? Let me also say this, in all due respect to our Eurocentric histories, Masonry, and I know this is a touchy subject, goes back not only to the Gnostics and the Essenes of the Bible in Jesus's day, where Jesus was a Nazarene and took a vow, an oath, but go way before that to 971 in Solomon's temple. And the 7-year building of the temple, 70,000 entered apprentice, 80,000 fellow craft, 3,300 master masons, 3 grand masters. But go beyond that, 20 years in building the downtown Jerusalem capital under Solomon's administration, 20 years. But we got to go way before 971 BC into the time of the great dynasties of ancient Kemet. These were Masons. So you say, well, Charlie, operative Mason, you're going off on operative Mason, but they had passwords, and you look at the hieroglyphics, you'll see some of the aprons, some of the things, because they were builders. What? The builder? They were builders. And they were builders in such a fashion that they had passwords and grips and signs. So I believe in the unification of our African history with our African American experience and our experience worldwide. I do appreciate the Grand Lodge of England chartering African Lodge 459. I celebrate our chartering. But I also understand that Masonry comes from this. Now, somebody get the baby. I'm on the podcast. Say hello to my wife, Lami, and my grandson. Bye, Kanaya. Okay, bye-bye. He wanted to join me. That's my man, boy.
Okay.
Come on in here. He might, he'll learn some. He'll learn something.
You don't want to do that. He'll take over. But so I was trying to get at the point. I can't study Masonry without an appreciation that Masonry comes from the history of Africa, not from what happened in England, in all due respect, not what happened by the aristocrats who became speculative Masons. I go to the history of Masonry from the very beginning. And because I am not torn between a Eurocentric and Afrocentric experience, I feel myself, I see myself, I'm standing on the shoulders of generations of men. But yet in the Prince Hall tradition, I value our American experience. I value our success. I work in fellowship with those who I know in the dark as in the light. But education is so critical. It's so important. It's so profoundly critical that if you are doing, and you're doing fish dinners, chicken dinners, bowling parties, smoked cigar parties, yard parties, and you're not doing the ritual, you ain't doing nothing. Please, brothers.
So
You say that again.
I will say that one more time. So
Exactly. Say that one more time. Exactly.
All this walking in squares and banqueting and everything, it's okay. Celebrate when you've done some work in the community. Celebrate when you brought some men into masonry. Celebrate when you put on a great degree. Bring together, this is beautiful, when a mason is raised, sublime degree of Master Mason, after his arduous journey, bring his family in and have a banquet. But let's not just be walking in squares and camel walking and doing all this without having done some work. What came you here to do? You came to learn, to subdue your passions and improve yourself in masonry. And in that regard, brothers, we must teach. We must teach in the community, but we must teach our brothers. And we don't know the answer. We don't know it all. We must teach. And so in that regard, that's how I feel about that. And I hope that that helps some of us who are struggling with why we got to learn the ritual that was written by the Black woman under Shakespeare. And I'll leave that alone. I didn't say that. Take that back. I take that back.
Worship Master, just real quick, I want to say, I don't know how you rule over your lodge, administrate nothing like that, but I know you have the master part down as far as master teacher. Master equals a teacher. So I know you got that part down.
Yes, my brother. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, that goes without saying. Now, I mean, Worshipful Master, you know, we go back many, many years, and I'm thankful that we've got to know each other a little bit better over the last recent years, just through our experiences together. As a leader of your lodge now, as just a respected Mason, who's seen as a leader, probably even before you were Worshipful Master, the energy that you exude when you talk about the teaching and the ritual and the important parts of Masonry from your perspective, how do you get that? I know that we can only control ourselves, so let me just preface that. And as the leader of the lodge, to be a motivator of men, what's maybe one way that you try to motivate the men? I know leading by example might be another way. So, what's one example? If someone's listening to this right now and they're super passionate about the ritual, but their brothers in their lodge just aren't as passionate about it, or they're very passionate about the community service aspect of it, but their brothers may not be passionate about it. If they were to become a master or become senior warden, junior warden, and they want to help motivate men, what's something that you do now or have done to motivate men that they could possibly glean?
Well, the platform that is provided for you, a vaunted platform, enables you. It's a very esteemed office. I believe if you feel like I do, Masonry is the missing link to the success of our people in America and other Western nations. Masonry is what's missing for the African man, the Black man and woman to rise. Institutions like ours that don't depend on government grants, programs like the Great Society Model Cities, revenue sharing, and all these other, that don't depend on corporate foundation money, that don't depend on grants from wealthy donors, that have built themselves based on the membership dues. Those institutions that are independent and free are institutions that can help lead our people out of this bondage that we're in. We're in trouble. 50 million of us in America, a world of 1.75 billion Africans on the globe. But the 50 million of us have half the money of the 1.75 billion of us are in the hands of 50 million of us in America. And it's certainly not a panacea. It's not a utopian, it's a dystopian society. I believe that Masonry is one of the few tools we have to rise as a people. And that goes far beyond just a great lodge with membership, a great district, a great grand lodge. I'm talking about the well-being, the communitarian well-being of community needs masonry. And if you feel passionate about masonry and you're excited about the ritual, live it. And when you live it, then you're not going to have a problem about the lodge being here 10 years from now. When you live it. So those who will love the ritual, like I do, begin to study it and understand it and explain it. Study it. I said for a new master, read the ritual 150 times at least before you've committed it in your mind. But then after you become a master mason, it doesn't stop with that and you just regurgitating and spitting. You need to be able to explain it and teach it. And to teach it, you must study it. You must be in these study classes. You must do your work. You must research. You must continue to work your trade. And so in that regard, I believe that we ought to be the redemption of our community. Black men and Black women, we should be the pillars of the community. And when we are, our community will rise. I'll give you one quick example and stop talking so much. There was in the Stan Mikowski School down the street from St. John's Lodge, 32 of us walked in there during the Christmas holiday season a few years ago with 800 toys and 6 bikes. The children in that school never saw 30 Black men in Black suits, white shirts, black ties, black shoes and socks with loads of toys. Now, some say, well, wait a minute, Charlie, you know, this Christmas season and all that commercialization. What the kids saw were Black men loving on them. And I dare you to do it, to go into a school where your lodge is. How are you going to be a lodge and not have nothing to do with the nearby school? How are you going to be a lodge and have nothing to do with the park where you are? How are you going to be a lodge and not respond to an issue and a crisis in the community? So with that in mind, it's a lot of work to be done, but I believe masonry, God will use masonry to bring us up. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And with righteous, what is the masonry? A beautiful system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by signs and symbols. And it is that system of morality that will raise Black America up. Without it, we will fail.
Brother, Pastor Mr. Alexander has a question, but before we move on, I know it's dark where you are, Worshipful Master Fisher. Your cameras just get a little dark and we're losing you. So I just want to make sure that we hear you, but we know as in the light, as in the dark, you know, we know we get you.
Because I got in the dark. Lord have mercy. Is this a little better?
That's much better.
Good.
Thank you.
Exactly. Worshipful Master Fisher, I do have one final question, and it deals with something that like with your grandson that just tried to get onto the show. How did you balance your family life along with masonry during your time in the East?
It's a wonderful question. I think I didn't understand this when I was younger. I was busy going everywhere, going to meetings, going to this, that, and that other. And so my children got drugged to a lot of community meetings. And they got taken, I drug them to the cookouts of the lodge and stuff like that. But I think the balance is so important. Good men and true know each other to be such, to always love them more. If we love our brothers, we're going to have to help them not to just be good masons in the lodge, but the best masons are masons that are leaders in their own family. And that means the meta nature or balance of, you know, this you ought to, the great light said, this you ought to have done and not left the other undone. It's wrong to spend all our time with the brothers when you got a wife and children waiting on you at home. And they tease me sometime now, but they say, well, the clock's on the wall, he's got to go. I said, that's right. And I'm not ashamed of it. I don't need to be hanging with you I need to get home.
Mm-hmm.
I got a wife that's waiting on me, and I got children that need me. And now as an older one, I got children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren that need me. So a good Mason also is a good family man. And we know about 8 hours for this and 8 hours for that and 8 hours for this. Am I right?
Yeah,
We're taught
100%.
to use our time very effectively. And so do your duty, but do your duty at home as well. You are the priest of your own house. And so that means you got to be the one that goes to the school. When a Prince Hall Mason walks in that school about business because of some injustice or some teacher that did something, or even if a kid is not doing what he's supposed to do, you walk in that school, you mean business. You're a leader when you walk in that block club and you have something to say. You're a leader when you go to that business association or when you go to that Rotary Club or whatever it is you do, that cultural meeting or wherever you go, represent. But when you're at home, represent. And children need to see the mystery. How can we talk about, well, let me just say in closing, my dad, he worked at Westinghouse for 30 years. He never was late for work. I never saw the inside of Westinghouse because he didn't really want me to be a Westinghouse employee. So on community day, I never got in there. But for the lodge, don't let it be said that your children have never been in the lodge, that your family isn't there. And the only time you take your wife is to the charity ball. Come on. So we can do better and we will do better. Let's be better Masons. Let's be the best men in our family as we are in our lodge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of when a man becomes a Mason, and even before when a man becomes a Mason, technically an apprentice, and when they become a Master Mason, they should be having conversations with their spouse, family members, loved ones, to let them know about the new journey, so that they can have some real conversations around expectations and what they hope to get and what they need from the family in order to have that balance, in order to have that life after being raised. And so I hear you loud and clearly. Bringing my son into the lodge, bringing him to the balls, and having him see these things and meeting the brothers. That should become normal in terms of like how we are engaging. And if we aren't able to bring our wives and our children around the brothers and even the sisters, then we got to sort of have to question ourselves around, what's going on here. So I hear you loud and clearly, and it sounds like you've been indoctrinated. You've been a part of this process for a very long time. So I mean, it's in the fabric of who you are. So I appreciate that. I do want to transition before we wrap up a little bit around how you interact with your wardens. So what we normally would ask is questions around, like, as a past master, how do you interact with the current Worshipful Master administration? But as the Worshipful Master right now, anything that you can either share with us. Again, this does not have to be a highlight reel. This could be things that you're struggling with. Like I'm very open about my struggles and how I struggle when things that I'm working on. But if there's anything that you can share in terms of anybody who's aspiring to be Worshipful Master or is current Worshipful Master that's listening right now, in terms of how you work with your wardens to execute the vision, will be very helpful. I would love to hear that.
Well, I have an officers meeting. I have an agenda, and my officers meeting that I have really is a time to sort of teach them. Yeah, the junior warden is the chair of our fellow craft club. And we're saying that a junior warden could be he's 2 heartbeats away from being in the East. I think that it's important to prepare the wardens and the deacons and the master of ceremonies and stewards, and saying that one day you'll be in this seat. This is what it entails. This is some of the things that you need to be prepared for. Give them a taste of leadership. Let them chair meetings. Show them how to pass motions. Show them how to administer the lodge, and give it to them in such a way that this year I'm doing this, but our 5-year plan requires you I'm not going to be the worshipful master 5 years from now. You will be. Or junior warden, you will be. And what are you going to do right now? What do you need to prepare? What kind of input do you want now? Because it's not going to be just my show this year. It's us. And so that, you know, in a minute, you're going to have to be in the East. Are you prepared for it? Are you ready for it? And then what can I do to help you get ready for it? And that's the kind of thing that I say. I do have something I want to share with you, though, brothers. One of the most proudest moments in my life was in 2003. My son, Charlie the Fourth, my father, Charlie Jr., and I participated in his third degree and helped raise him into Master Mason. I couldn't do more to tell my dad I loved him and I appreciated he was a good Mason than to pass it on to the next generation. And if you ever have that opportunity, good brothers, to see one of yours come in, it's a wonderful thing. I'm the grandson of Charlie Fisher Jr., who was a Prince Hall Mason in Louisiana. My grandmother, Florence Fisher, in Alexandria, Louisiana, was an associate matron for 28 years. Back then in Louisiana, you took a position, that was your lifetime position. So they did a long thing. But I am my father and mother, and so I'm passing it along. And I wanted to share that. That's a little bit off the path, but junior warden, they're listening to us, being prepared now to run a meeting. And the officers meeting actually does the business. So when you get in a lodge meeting, you're not doing committee work in a lodge meeting. A lodge meeting should be an hour long, brothers. Not a debate about this, that, and the other. Make it short. You got to go home to your family. Let's have some quick, short meetings. Go to an officers meeting, hash it out, and come out of that meeting and go into the lodge. Well, those are just some of the ideas, brothers, that I know you men have. You are great worshipful masters. You're great past masters. I bless both your lodges and your work in the district, because you both are great examples. And you just keep up the good work, brothers.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Worsh. To link back to the family aspect, just real quick. I remember when I went to a visit, like as soon as I came over to Prince Hall, I think like 2015, somewhere around that time, in Virginia, I believe it's Metropolitan Lodge. But during their raising, during the time, the break in between, that's when they have the little collation. They actually invited their family out. The brothers that was getting raised, their family came to that. And that was part of the celebration and linking them already to the lodge. That was a very nice, impressive thing that they did. I like that thing. So I definitely want to share that. Just in case anybody want to, yeah, exactly. Somebody want to take that idea, if you could, if you want to. Also, you know, when you was made me think about something that Right Worshipful Sandino said on here, like if you're not gonna invite my wife, I'm not going either.
Yeah, bro. I hear you.
So yeah, it's very important. Very
Yeah.
important about the familyhood aspect of our craft. So Worship Master Fisher, it definitely has been a pleasure to have you on this episode, and you have gave us many different gems and things for us to think about when it comes to, especially just being a teacher as worship master. That's one thing that every worship master got to realize, that they are the master teacher of their lodge. So they do have to do that. You do have to lead by example, the motivator of men. So brothers, and you're coming up through the craft, read books on motivation, YouTube or whatever. Learn how to motivate men before you get to these seats. Building up from previous administrations, and you went back to like the 1920s or something like that. So it's even better to go back into those old. That's the reason why we have those minutes, brothers. Go into those minutes and see what happened before. One quick example, what I did before I became worship, I looked through the worship master's stewardship reports that came before me to see if it was anything left unaccomplished or things like that. That's something you could do too. And most importantly, I'm gonna leave it with one of the best Jews you said. If you ain't doing and studying the ritual, you ain't doing nothing. So
I'm glad you use your words wisely there. I appreciate you doing that, but we understand. Gotcha.
Yeah,
We can use some other words, but they know what I mean.
Exactly. So I definitely we definitely appreciate you, and thank you for your words of wisdom and blessing us, and hopefully the brothers and sisters and whoever listen to this program be able to glean something from it to become better men, masons, and individual people in general.
Absolutely. So, Worshipful Master Fisher, thank you again. Pastor Master Alexander already expressed the thanks that I have as well. Is there anything that you want the world to hear, whether they're Masons, stars, or just individual humans out in the world listening to our podcast, that you want them to take from this about leadership?
I think that the real thing, that love conquers all. And I think that it's important for us how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. And let's be united. And when we're united, we'll share, we'll teach, we'll strengthen our brothers. The strong will bear the infirmities of the weak. And we'll go out and do the work that we're supposed to do. So, brothers, I'll be looking for, I enjoyed your programs in the past. Keep on sharing this information, grow your program. And again, thank you so much for listening to me for a few minutes, honoring this old guy here. But I can still beat both of y'all in basketball.
Whoa. Well.
That sounds like a challenge.
Be a pickle guy. You might be a power forward. You don't want to mess with me.
We have to pull out a basketball court at Grand Law session or so.
Yeah, and I could go to the get my Lakers hat because I am a Los Angeles Laker.
Respectfully, Worshipful Master, I love you, but I don't know if you want this on the court. I don't know if you want this on the court. I don't know if you want this on the court. You know, I'm 5'4". I'm a short guy, but I still got that work for you if you want the
Muggsy Bogues was 5'3". Tell me I'm wrong. But Webb was 5'7".
Way to drop that bomb at the end. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, thank you, Worshipful Master. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all that you have done for the craft too, just as a brother, as a leader, as someone who's inspired a lot of men coming up in the craft. I remember when I was coming up through the craft, just the involvement that you've had in the lodge and in this great organization of ours for so many years. Thank you for all that you do as our District Deputy Grand Lecturer Emeritus. The work that you did when we were brothers were in New Jersey. I didn't go to that session. Yeah, exactly. I know Pastor Master Alexander was there, but thank you for representing the 7th District. Thank you for representing our state in that space and teaching the brothers and helping them to understand what you were able to impart from a lecture and ritual standpoint. And so we appreciate you.
As we say in Kiswahili, asante sana. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everyone, for giving us your most valuable resource, your time. We appreciate you for listening and viewing if you're on YouTube to another episode of the Masterful Conversations podcast where we talk about leadership. We hope that, as Pastor Master Alexander said, that what you heard today will add value to yourself personally, to your families, your communities, your lodges, etc., so that you will become, at least as our Grand Master says, 1% better because of what you heard today. We hope that you will continue to subscribe to our channel or subscribe to our channel, like this episode, so that others will be able to see it when they visit this platform. And
tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, text it to your buddy.
Text it, share it, get it all with everybody. And with that, I will say, remember that leadership, the world needs leaders. Leadership starts with leading yourself. And it's hard for you to lead other people if you cannot lead yourself. And so continue to take the time to develop yourself and to continue to become the leader that you are destined to be. Until the next time we get together, God bless.
Come here. No, don't push it in there.